you are on this consortium journey, whether we're considering it, what your model is, and the challenges you're facing.
Sure. My name is Reza Benem. I'm the founder and chairman of a company called Control Shift. We're a technology provider in the APAC space and also provide some services. We're actually not a publisher, but we enable publishers. So Control Shift launched a private marketplace, private premium marketplace last month in Malaysia with 9 leading publishers. And we have a twist on the consortium. It's not a true consortium because it's led by us as an independent party, and we're helping publishers in the Malaysian market and soon in Thailand and Indonesia. We're helping them bring their inventory and data together and actually sell audiences rather than just the inventory or just the data. So we're combining those two and creating audiences for agencies and brands to be able to buy. So as an alternative to Google and Facebook.
Fantastic.
Hello, my name is Mei Hua Chung. I'm currently the group CIO and CTO of digital business of a sizable news organization who currently have print and also digital. Our operations primarily in Hong Kong and Taiwan. Regarding the consulting stage over there, we really at a very, very rudimentary state. We actually did not have a consultant yet. The conversation of having something like that started last year. And actually, over the past couple of months, I have been actively talking to a couple of media in Taiwan and to our own company. It's a little bit tough with the conversation. I think people show interest, especially because of the pressure from Facebook and Google for the advertising budget. Basically, starting this year, agency frankly told us they only giving us 20% of the budget. So we're at the very beginning stage right now.
Hi, thanks. It's great to be here. So I'm Gyan. I'm the CEO for DB Digital, which is one of the largest media houses in the country. On the digital side, we're the largest digital group in the country, the news group in the country, with about 100 million plus unique users that we do. I think what we have been discussing in the morning, I think few things probably are writing on the wall, but somehow it takes a lot more for everyone to come on the same page, because that's really a clear fact that we all see that you have to get a share out of the Facebook and the Google, and that's really the largest 2 players in India right now. And among the publishers, we are really not fighting. But sometimes, this is a little difficult, and I think I've been trying to get a consortium out in India, for some time now. I mean, I think it's really challenging, but I'm personally convinced that that is the only way forward for us to have a more sustainable and for a more, brighter way forward. Otherwise, we'll probably become like a content syndication, these platforms, and with not really much of a, presence in the future.
So my name is Ronnie. Hi everyone. So I'm currently the CMO of Kaskus Networks. So for those who are familiar about Kaskus, we were the pioneer in internet. We are the largest in terms of Indonesian communities in Indonesia. A little bit about Indonesia, I believe nowadays on the latest statistic we have something like 100 plus million internet users right now, out of about 260 million populations in Indonesia alone. But I come here today specifically acting as the chairman of IDA. So I'm also the chairman of the Indonesian Digital Association. Association was founded in 2014 by none of the largest publishers in Indonesia. Richard, I will be very happy if I come here and say that we have our IPACs. By the way, we call ourselves the IPACs, so change the K to I, Indonesia Premium Exchange. But the sad news is that we didn't make it. That's the things that I would like to share later on. We didn't make it. So on the very last minute, almost everyone signed. So one of the largest publishers dropped out because of the change of management, on the higher level management. So one single publisher and everything fell apart. But I think we are trying to pick up all the pieces again, try to rebuild the APACs. Yeah, that's what happened with the country right now. But we also understand that we need to compete one way or another with the large guys, as mentioned before, the GNF. Indonesia is a very huge market. We understand that we need to have a consortium, but obviously there are a lot of challenges for the region.
Yeah, so let's jump into that a little bit, because I think we have seen, it was amazing. We had a workshop yesterday, and the consistency of challenges across all of us was remarkable. We all are facing the same challenges. And I wouldn't mind going to start. Just explain a little bit around the challenges that you saw in India, and also whether we are being realistic or not that we can compete.
So I think one of the stuff that Ronnie said, the last minute, one of the publishers kind of falling apart. I think that is, for me, I think that is something, that's the main challenge I always see. When we have been able to get about 5 or 6 main guys on the table, and last minute, if one of the guys say, for whatever reasons, it shakes the entire group. And I think that has been one of the biggest challenges that we're trying to nail down, of making everyone understand that this is not about today, but it's about a couple of quarters, a couple of years down the line, and also the impact of the short-term revenue. So second challenge that we always saw, that not every publisher or every organization has the same line of sight. Someone really looked at the short term, saying that, but it may impact my short-term revenue, and that is where most of the discussions went into more of a holistic discussion. You can't really nail that discussion down. What if tomorrow happens? Of course, anything can happen tomorrow, but you can't really have a logical conclusions through discussions, and that is where it always went in a debate, and we spent hours just debating that without coming to an actual closure. So that's one of the 2 main challenges probably that you see out the country, and that is what we're trying to figure out. How do we really solve for those?
Yeah, I have one of the things that we put in place very early on was a monthly board meeting with my shareholders, and I go in on my hands and knees every board meeting and pray that they are what we call holding formation. Every time somebody changes jobs, we sort of take a deep breath and hope that they either understand the consortium model and secondly align with it very quickly. It's a constant challenge that we face, but I often say, okay, well then give me another option, because I don't see it right now. So consortiums seem to be the play that we can all align behind. Ronnie, do you want to explain a little bit more about your challenges that you face and how you didn't quite get it over the line as yet?
Yeah, so our conditions were not obviously about whether we agree on what we need a consortium, which we did agree almost a year ago, almost 1.5 years ago. But I guess it becomes imminent that if you see right now is that the change of management becomes very critical. So what happened with the country Indonesia is that I believe 50% of the largest, or more than 50% of the largest publishers in the country actually owned by TV companies. They are very large conglomerate in Indonesia. A little bit change because digital is still small, we call it that way, compared with the TV spending. So it always becomes a small baby, right? So if there's a change of management, they always involve the traditional people coming over, try to do things in there, and they have no understanding at all, sometimes at all. So it becomes a challenge. We need to start the conversation again about why we need the consortium, and why we need to fight with the big guys, and the kind of pricing that we talk about, because they are larger, we are smaller, they're smaller, they're bigger, But it becomes an issue because there's sort of like a change of management happen very often nowadays in the Indonesian startup, in Indonesian digital, Indonesian publisher as well. But recently, everything start to pick up again. We restart the conversations. The name is still there. We bought the domain already. It's just that this never happened. It's a very last minute kind of situations. But Yeah, I think the challenges that region, if the change of management become prevalent, especially when traditional people step in, then everything starts to break apart again.
Yeah, and the one thing that we had to accept very early on with the consortium was that everybody is always on a different page. So we're all on this journey, but we're not all on the same stage of the journey. And we see the commitment to CAPEX directly proportionate to how hot their feet are, how fast the platform's burning, and clearly the publisher platform has been burning more aggressively and for longer than the broadcaster platform. So we have to take into account that some people want revenue today and fast movement, whilst often the broadcasters want a safety net sitting there for when their platform goes. So we see less commitment, less inventory, but equal intent from all providers, and that acceptance that they're all on a different stage in the journey is really important to us. So Reza, are we being realistic?
Well, I mean, there are countries, including yours, that have been successful. There's examples in France and other places. But fundamentally, we also see a lot of challenges that the panelists have talked about. It's predominantly personality driven, and so it can be unstable, as the other panelists have talked about. So we've tried to take that model and actually look at how we can make it into an opportunity. Look at the challenges and how to make it into an opportunity. So what we've done is we've gone in, instead of optimizing per publisher, because each publisher is at the table trying to optimize for themselves, and nobody is empowered to look at the global maxima for this problem. So that's the approach we've taken. As an independent party, we've said, why don't you commit inventory to this pool? And by the way, this is initially, because there's a lot of publishers in this region who are not very comfortable with the open exchanges, especially for their premium inventory. So we needed to find a low-risk way to get these publishers on board to test kind of this model. And so what they've done is they've committed their inventory as a first look. If we can't monetize it through this private marketplace, they have other channels in which they can monetize. So it keeps us honest to make sure that we're getting the right yield for them. And in fact, we've dedicated quite a bit of resources to yield management on behalf of these publishers. And we're not only bringing the inventory together, we're bringing the data together. So they trust us to segment their data and share that across various publishers so that the marketer has access to all of the publisher segments across all of the publishers' inventory. And so we've taken a different model. And partly it was trial and error, because we actually tried to facilitate the consortium in Thailand for about 6-7 months, and we realized, okay, this is just about, it's herding cats. Everybody has a different opinion. It becomes a very bureaucratic type of process, and you can't move fast. And in order to give Google and Facebook some challenge, you need to be able to move fast and optimize for the global environment rather than each publisher at a time.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing of the removing bureaucracy out of these businesses that are naturally quite bureaucratic. It has been a key element to success in terms of being able to innovate fast and not having to ask permission. We just apologize a lot. So mate, when you look at the consortium model in Hong Kong and Taiwan, what's the advertiser perspective of this? Are they supportive of you going out there creating a model, and how are you addressing that?
Yeah, actually, I personally have not talked to an advertiser, right? Ironically, what we were faced is actually we have agencies asking us to basically designate, reserve a good amount of inventory to them at low cost, right? At the more like programmatic rate. Otherwise, they would not buy from us. So it's almost a threat. So I think that actually gave us even more drive to say we had to do something. But regarding the challenge, going back to the previous question, I think during the conversation with different media, what I found is the major three challenge. One is really the commitment. I've seen senior management had talk about, oh, you know, we can never be as good as Google and Facebook, why bother? So literally, that is one of, you know, the very, you know, disappointing answer. Or we will see publisher with a good sizable inventory similar to us. We're like, well, you know, because we ask for exclusivity, right? Because I personally believe that that's the only way it works. Like if,
Definitely is.
yeah, because otherwise, if I give just a sample to you, you lose because overall, it is still Google is going to be doing better, you know. So it's cheaper, so it's going to go there. So it's not going to work. But no, and then we're seeing response. Well, why don't you try out our international inventory? You know, if it works, then we'll do the local inventory, which really would not work. So we see that kind of response. I think the other side of it is really the trust. We got, you know, quite a few questions. We're like, well, but our data is our jewels, so you know, we don't want to give the jewels to this consortium, right? So I think that we heard a bit of that. And the third one is the business model. I think people are wondering, so exactly how this is going to work? What's my share? You know, if I give my data, how do you trace it down? Is my data earning other people's revenue? And therefore, how am I going to get the revenue share out of it? So I think that's really, I'm really delightful that, Richard, you know, that you're sharing your practice. Because I think only when we kind of have a good model that we can really explain to the publisher of how is this going to work, how would the whole ecosystem going to work, how would each of you contribute and then get more back in the term of dollars and cents rather than a theory, because you're asking them to give up their, you know, to give you the exclusivity, so they really need to have a good outlook of what's the potential that they'll get more out of it, an example of it.
Yeah, that's so fundamental. The A, clear structures, B, exclusivity, C, commitment for a period of time. So we made everyone sign a 2-year exclusivity contract, which ran out yesterday, which is exciting to go back to on Monday. No, we see continued commitment, which is good. And then the data model. The data model, we've got so much evidence that demonstrates that our combined data makes everybody money. There's upside for inventory, there's upside for data. The more data gets overlaid on more impressions, the data provider makes more money. More inventory fires more aggressively in auctions, the yield is higher. Advertisers get to target and reduce their wastage and see a better outcome. So there are lots of processes that sit behind that, but ultimately it's a it's a positive story that we can tell in the market. So let's jump into data just quickly. So Ronnie, do you want to just talk to us a little bit around the benefits of combining your data versus trying to do it alone with the information you have as a single site or a single media?
Yeah, we had a conversation when we started this consortium that obviously data is important, especially targeted and being able to sell in a much higher pricing and having more targeted audiences and things like that. So I think the value itself, I think we all in the room realize this, but I think the idea is that how we get all together, being synchronized, having the experience that it will be like literally in a single database. I think that's really a very scary thought for any publishers, right? We're like, do you know my data? Do you know my ID? Do I know my data? It's really having that very traditional thoughts. But obviously, technology-wise, I think we are.
Yeah, and Diane, as you looked at this model in your market, what was your data intent? How significant was that to the consortium model as you looked to set it up and the data sharing and obviously the concerns that come with that?
So I think we had two problems. First, not all the publishers really had a data model. And I think that was another stuff that we really wanted to propagate because they were not able to see the value of the data. And that was one of the differences in trying to get everyone on the same platform, because data was the core element that was required. And while we have been propagating, and I think we have been working with Lotame for a very long time, and we have seen the real value of what data can do to you. But still, I think we were not really able to convince them the cost of having data collected and really how they can really leverage that out. So I think that was the key element. But if we will not, I mean, the solution, in my opinion, is very simple. If you will not share the data and if you will not have the data anyways, you would probably die sooner than later. I mean, it's a question of how soon you really want to die. But sometimes, like I said, not really. A lot of publishers are willing to take that cost plunge for multiple reasons, because in addition to other factors that might exist in other regions, India is also a very low eCPM market. When you really look at the eCPM in India, you guys really laugh off. When we operate at a 30 cent or a 40 cent average eCPM, that pulled across the publisher. So that obviously makes the technology cost unjustifiable. At that low eCPM, you really have to struggle hard, or the publisher will have to really make an investment to do that stuff. So I think the problems are slightly more,
Yeah, you have to work harder to demonstrate value and outcome.
Absolutely.
Right? It's an interesting model, the data model, and the way we approached it was very sensitive. Everyone is with their own data, so we started by firstly tagging everybody up where we could, and secondly packaging it into PMPs. So at no point do we make the data available on an open marketplace or any marketplace. We only made it available for us to wrap our PMPs around it. So, and then we released audience PMPs, generic audience PMPs on the marketplace, and then move into customized PMPs for advertisers. What that did, firstly, two things. Firstly, it demonstrated the market that our product was developing. But the second thing that it did is it gave these businesses confidence that the world wasn't going to fall apart. And actually, their data wasn't quite as unique or valuable than they thought it was, but collectively they could monetize a lot more effectively. We are now onto the journey. It's taken 2 years for them to start to consider putting some of their data onto an exchange. So it's definitely the longest part of the journey, but also been the bit that has driven the highest yield and allowed us, for every dollar we spend on data, it's justifiable 10 times over with the return we get back in terms of driving that yield for us as a business.
But realistically, when a publisher gave the data to the consortium, they really did not give the data to other publishers. It's really just a consortium. I think that's something that they need to understand. And it's the consortium that using the joint data to really make everyone's inventory more valuable. One case in point is that I work for Next Digital. We have tons of traffic, so like really the #1 digital media in Hong Kong and Taiwan. And the problem for us often is that our users, we have a lot of loyal users who read every single thing that we put in front of them. Then that means it's very hard for us to get particular interest from them. However, if we join consortium with a publisher who are more focused, like interest focused, either forum or special interest, they don't have as much inventory as we do by far. However, they have the interest. So together, then I think we will all be much better off when they get a share of that.
Yeah, you end up with two things. Firstly, it's a really easy argument to a CFO. We say you can trade on your 100 million page impressions, or you can trade your data on 1 billion page impressions. Which one would make more financial sense? Okay, they get that pretty quickly. And the second thing is you could trade your inventory at a $1 CPM or a $10 CPM, which one makes more sense? And they sort of get the hang of that pretty quick in terms of the model. And then, the process that sits around it is the hard bit. You know, okay, the allocation of data, the fact that a business audience can be created in 2 places and who gets that revenue. But we have processes that we've had to develop for that, which become business as usual once people are confident and willing to transact. What I wouldn't mind doing quickly now is just we're running on, just say what are the big things for the future for you guys in terms of that model. Is the global cooperative a good idea? Is it a natural next step, or what is the next step for your markets as we're all in different places? We'll just go down the line, and then we'll throw one question to the floor if anybody's got a question, and then I think we'll have to wrap up.
So for us, it's about replicating the model that we've started with in Malaysia and the other markets in ASEAN. It's also to give publishers tools to help them figure out how they can compete better with each other. So it's very interesting. What we did, for example, was we went in and started scoring each publisher's inventory based on viewability, just one dimension. And we have a traffic light system, so they get green, yellow, or red, depending on how viewable a particular placement is across multiple devices, across various factors. And just giving them that metric has improved the viewability of our inventory in the private marketplace from something from 38% to close to 50% viewable inventory. So some of it's about giving tools so that everyone can standardize on the right standard definitions, whether it's the IoT definitions or whatever the industry picks up, and really educating them on how they can make their inventory and their data more effective. Yeah, so just improving and bringing more standards, again, optimizing for the entire publisher industry, independent publisher industry. I call ourselves kind of the unwalled garden, right? It's an open ecosystem, so people can come in, can test it. It's a low-risk way of doing it. So that's our plans for the future.
Yeah, industry standards are a great opportunity because the more standardization you have, the greater ability to create one format, one measurement vehicle, and again, one point of demand. Maybe, what's your future look like?
Future?
For the business?
I think, it's really, I do believe in consulting. So I'm hoping to continue to work with, different medias and hopefully learn from you and bring the model to Hong Kong and Taiwan. And regarding international, we actually also have U.S. operation also, because we do have Chinese in U.S. and kind of around the world. So I do believe that international co-op has a future. But we do have a language. Like we have a few different kind of Chinese. So we have Chinese from China, Chinese from Hong Kong, Taiwan, and also the local. So all have different culture, different affinities. So it's not as easy to really do targeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
See, I think for us, we really have to get the technology ecosystem up in terms of how can we solve for a lot of different technological problems of data, viewability, and trying to also solve for the demand side. So I think first we have to, one of the stuff that will really, I'll have to solve, or as an industry, we'll have to probably get together is solve for the ecosystem. Because when we look back and said what one of the things where we jumped the gun was, we asked everyone to come together without even solving for technology or telling them how things would look like, how the data sharing would happen, and it's not really actually a data sharing, like what she said. I'm not sharing that with you, I'm just saying the data to the consortium. So I think one of the stuff that we try to do, or we're trying to do now, is solve for the technology first. And once I think the technology is solved, then go back again and say, okay, this is what it looks like, and this is all what we have to do, along by solving the demand side of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting that stack is fundamental, and everyone bought into it. Ronnie, what about you? What's the next 12 months like?
Yeah, so I just don't think that we have any other issues anymore in terms of Indonesian association. I think it's just as simple as getting everyone to be on the same table and try to sign an agreement. But one thing that I literally learned like half an hour ago right? I'm going to tell the rest of the guys in the members itself that the rest of the world are not talking about like global premium exchange right now. So we really need to speed up ourselves because the world is getting connected here in terms of premium. So I think the Indonesian side, we need to really ramp up ourselves. Start the social and connect to the global.
Yeah, absolutely. All of us are better together rather than the more consortiums, the more success we'll see. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Now, I don't know if we've got time for another question. We don't have time for another question. So come and grab any of us if you have any other questions. Otherwise, thank you very much. Thanks, guys, for
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.